Welcome back, dear friends, and a warm hello to the first-time visitors of my channel. Whether we like it or not, film adaptations rarely manage to capture the full richness and depth of their literary originals. And the Harry Potter saga is no exception. The movies missed, or altered, many important elements: Ginny's personality, the intensity of Quidditch matches, the rich details of the wizarding world. The list could go on and on. Yet, to be fair, there were also scenes where the adaptation actually did things better. Sometimes a director's vision, a brilliant performance, or just the right moment on screen added something even more powerful than the written word. Let's revisit some of those memorable highlights. Number 1, Harry and Dumbledore's apparition. A moment of power and grace. Throughout the books, Dumbledore is portrayed as a wise and humble wizard, someone who avoids the spotlight despite his immense power. That's why the rare moments when he does reveal his authority hit with extra impact. In The Half-Blood Prince, Dumbledore and Harry leave Hogwarts in search of a Horcrux. The book describes the departure rather modestly, but in the film the scene begins at the top of the astronomy tower, filled with quiet grandeur. When Harry hesitantly asks if it's really okay to leave school grounds like this, Dumbledore calmly replies, "I'm the headmaster. I have certain privileges." A brilliant line that captures his gravitas and quiet confidence. Number 2, Harry, the chosen one, but still a teenager. One of the best moments that reminds us Harry isn't just a legendary figure. He's also a regular teenager, prone to sarcasm and mischief. In the Half-Blood Prince film, Hermione points out that Romilda Vane is likely more interested in Harry's fame than in Harry himself. Without missing a beat, he replies with a smirk, "But I am the chosen one," and immediately gets a playful smack from Hermione. It's a short scene, but it makes the characters feel real, grounded, and relatable. Number 3, Dobby's freedom. Sharper and more logical on screen. Dobby is a fan favourite, even though his role in the films was reduced due to the technical challenges of bringing a house elf to life. Still, the moment of his freedom might have actually been better on screen than in the book. In the film, Harry cleverly hides a sock inside Tom Riddle's diary and hands it to Lucius Malfoy, who unknowingly gives it to Dobby, thus freeing him. It's a clean, well-executed plan. In the book, Harry hides the sock in the diary as well, but the way Dobby is freed feels more like a lucky accident. That small change gives the scene a sense of purpose and shows Harry's cleverness rather than leaving it to chance. Number 4, Harry and Hermione's dance. A scene that wasn't in the book, but said so much. This scene doesn't exist in the books, and yet it became one of the most emotional moments in the entire film series. After Ron leaves them behind, the atmosphere grows heavy with tension and despair. But Harry and Hermione stay together. And then, a dance. No dialogue, no romance, just quiet support, sadness, warmth, and a flicker of hope in the darkness. It's a beautiful reminder that their friendship is deep, unbreakable, and desperately needed. In that moment, they are just two teenagers trying to stay sane in a collapsing world. Number 5, Harry, Umbridge, and the Centaurs. A small revenge in a big war. Umbridge is arguably one of the most despised characters in the series, and her punishment in the Forbidden Forest is one of the most satisfying. In the book, she screams and threatens, relying on her ministry status to protect her. But the film adds a perfect flourish. As she begs Harry for help, he responds coldly, "Sorry, Professor, I must not tell lies," referencing her infamous punishment that left scars on his hand. It's both chilling and triumphant, a moment of justice, elegantly delivered. Number 6, the return of Voldemort in the graveyard. The graveyard is silent. Cedric lies lifeless on the ground. Harry is frozen. Then the ritual begins. Bones, flesh, blood. The cauldron hisses, steam rises, and from it, Voldemort is reborn. In the book, Rowling captures the horror. Lord Voldemort had risen again, but the film makes it real, tangible, terrifying. The scene is soaked in darkness, the air thick with fear. Ralph Fiennes appears like a nightmare. His skin is pale, serpent-like, his voice soft, almost gentle. That's what makes it worse. He circles Harry slowly, savouring every word. "I can touch you now," he whispers. Then he does. Cold fingers brush Harry's face. That single gesture carries more threat than any curse. The camera closes in. Harry trembles, and the audience holds its breath. The moment is quiet, but it's unbearable. The duel begins. Voldemort strikes. Harry defends. Sparks fly. The wands connect. The effect, priori incantatem, traps them both. Shadows appear. Cedric, Frank Bryce, Lily, James. In the book, this is a moment of magic. In the film, it's a haunting. The faces in the smoke are fragile and glowing. Harry stares at them, barely holding on. They tell him to run. He does, but Voldemort's scream chases him through the graveyard. Number 7, the duel between Snape and McGonagall. The hallway is silent. Then Professor McGonagall steps forward. Her eyes are cold, her voice steady. It is not a night for evasion, Severus. Snape stands at the other end, unmoving. In the book, this confrontation is brief, sharp, but restrained. J.K. Rowling writes, "They circled each other like wolves about to fight. The duel ends quickly. Snape flees. That's it. No sparks, no spells exchanged, but the film turns it into a moment of power." Tension crackles in the air. Snape flicks his wand. McGonagall blocks it without blinking. Then she attacks. Flames leap across the floor. Spells flash like lightning. Snape retreats, blocking, twisting, dodging. The camera swings with them as the great hall explodes with magic. "I've always wanted to use that spell," McGonagall says with a quiet thrill, casting 4 animated suits of armor into battle formation. Her voice is fierce, her strength undeniable. Alan Rickman plays Snape like a man holding back. Every motion is deliberate. He doesn't strike to harm, only to deflect. As he crashes through the window in a burst of smoke, there's a moment of doubt. He could have fought harder, but he didn't. And that silence speaks louder than any curse. The film allows us to see the conflict within him without needing a single word of explanation. Number 8. Sirius's death and Harry's breakdown. Sirius is gone. 1 second he's fighting, alive, defiant, and the next he falls behind the veil, silent, final. In the book, Harry watches it happen. He waits, expects him to return. "He'll come back," Harry whispers, but he doesn't. The moment is quiet, almost too quiet. Harry is stunned, but the reaction is internal. The grief is buried beneath paragraphs, suppressed like everything else in his life. The film doesn't suppress it, it lets it explode. The moment Bellatrix Lestrange kills Sirius, Harry breaks. He charges after her, screaming. Gary Oldman disappears in a flicker of light, but Daniel Radcliffe stays. He howls, he shakes. Lupin holds him back, and Harry fights to get free, screaming Sirius's name. There's no magic in that moment, just pain, raw and loud. It's not subtle, but it shouldn't be. It's real. Later, in Dumbledore's office, it gets worse. The silence breaks. Harry throws things, smashes the glass cabinets, shouts at Dumbledore, begs for answers, demands justice. Radcliffe's voice cracks as he yells, "Look at me!" It's not the voice of a hero. It's the voice of a boy who just lost the only family he had left. The scene is wild, violent, but honest. You feel every second of it. The book offers insight, the film offers feeling. Both matter, but the movie makes you sit in Harry's pain. It doesn't let you look away. And for a character who has survived loss after loss, this one cuts the deepest. The film knows it, and it lets us see it, hear it, grieve with him. That's what makes the scene unforgettable. Number 9, Felix Felicis and Aragog's funeral. When Harry drinks Felix Felicis, everything changes. In the book, the potion brings luck and confidence. Rowling writes, "It was as though liquid luck was coursing through his veins, exhilarating him, lightening him." But the effect stays mostly internal. The narration tells us how Harry feels, what he decides to do. He moves with strange certainty, but we don't quite see the transformation in full colour. In the film, Daniel Radcliffe turns it into magic, not the kind with wands, but the kind that makes you laugh without knowing why. His eyes go wide, his movements are fluid, almost whimsical. "I'm going to Hagrid's," he says cheerfully, completely ignoring Hermione and Ron's confusion. He walks outside in the middle of the day, arms swinging high on good fortune. It's absurd, and it's brilliant. You don't just see the luck, you feel it. Then comes the funeral. Aragog lies in a silk-wrapped bundle. Slughorn, emotional and half-suspicious, stands by with a bottle of venom in mind. But Harry? He's in his own little world. He pats Slughorn's shoulder. He speaks with heartfelt drama about the noble beast that was Aragog. Radcliffe's timing is perfect. When he says, "Farewell, Aragog, king of the arachnids," it's impossible not to grin. There's no fear, no awkwardness, just charm, silliness, and strange poetic energy. The film doesn't just adapt the book, it elevates it. The potion becomes more than a plot device. It becomes a performance, a rare moment of levity in a dark story. And it works because the actors lean into it. Jim Broadbent plays Slughorn with just the right blend of guilt and delight. Radcliffe gives Harry the freedom to be weird, joyful, and wonderfully unpredictable. It's a scene that invites rewatching, not because it's important, but because it's fun. And sometimes that's what magic really is. Number 10, Harry and Dudley's final goodbye. The goodbye between Harry and Dudley is quiet. In the book, it happens just before the Dursleys are taken into hiding. Dudley pauses. He doesn't insult Harry, doesn't sneer. Instead, he stretches out his hand, awkwardly. "I don't think you're a waste of space," that's all he says. 7 words. And yet, for a boy raised to hate his cousin, it means everything. Harry is stunned. So are we. But the moment passes quickly and the scene ends. The film chooses a different path. It places the farewell in the driveway. A government car idles nearby. Vernon grunts. Petunia avoids eye contact, but Dudley stands still. His eyes are fixed on Harry. "Why isn't he coming with us?" he asks. His voice is soft, unsure. Harry looks up, surprised, and in that pause, something shifts. No sarcasm, no fists, just concern. Harry doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. Dudley's question is the answer. Harry and Dudley were never meant to be friends. Their childhood was filled with punches, stolen letters, and locked cupboards. But in this moment, none of that matters. What matters is that Dudley, raised by fear and prejudice, finally sees Harry as a person. Not a freak, not a burden, just family. The camera lingers on Harry's face. His surprise is genuine. There's no hug, no dramatic music, just a long, quiet look between two boys who grew up in the same house, but in different worlds. Harry nods, a simple, almost imperceptible gesture. Dudley turns and leaves. That's it. The scene lasts less than a minute. But it closes a wound that's been opened since Chapter 1 of The Philosopher's Stone. The film didn't add much, just a question, a look. But sometimes that's all it takes. Number 11, Snape's death and look at me. Snape dies alone. In the book, his final moments unfold in the shrieking shack, surrounded by blood and dust, described in a few precise, almost clinical lines. Voldemort's snake strikes and Harry watches helplessly. It is tragic, yes, but brief. Rowling writes the snake's fangs pierced him again and Harry knew there was nothing he could do. It's over in seconds. There's no time to feel it. But the film slows everything down. It places the scene in a boathouse bathed in cold, greenish light. Rain hammers the glass. Snape's body lies sprawled on the floor, his robes soaked, his breath shallow. Alan Rickman's eyes flicker, filled with pain, not from the bite, but from the memory of her. When Harry rushes to him, Snape grabs the boy's collar. His voice trembles. Take them, he whispers, offering the last pieces of his life. And then the line that broke hearts, look at me. Just 2 words, but they carry the weight of decades. He's not looking at Harry, he's searching for Lily, one last time, through her son's eyes. It is a moment the book never shows. We learn about Snape's love only after he dies, through memories, through Dumbledore's solemn whisper, "You have your mother's eyes." But the film brings it forward. It makes us feel it in real time. The shift from mystery to emotion is sudden and powerful. It changes how we see him, not just as a bitter man or a double agent, but as someone whose life was built around a single, unspoken grief. Alan Rickman doesn't need many words. His silence does the work. His eyes, the faltering breaths, the way he clutches Harry's hand, they reveal everything. And for a character so guarded, so unreadable, that vulnerability is overwhelming. Number 12. The destruction of the Millennium Bridge. The film Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince opens with a scene that does not exist in the book. A grey, stormy sky, the sound of wind sweeping over London's rooftops, and then scream. In a flash of dark smoke, the Millennium Bridge begins to shake. Steel twists, glass shatters, and in seconds the bridge collapses into the Thames. The Death Eaters soar through the sky like monstrous shadows. It's fast, violent, and terrifying, and it tells the audience one thing: the war is no longer hidden, it's here. In the book, J.K. Rowling only hints at these attacks. Early on, Minister Scrimgeour describes the growing unrest. We are aware that there has been some trouble. Muggles have been affected, but it's abstract, distant. We hear of disappearances, freak weather, and unexplained collapses, but never see them happen. The film changes that. David Yates chooses to make the threat visible. The bridge scene doesn't just tell us there's danger, it forces us to feel it, to imagine being a Muggle on that bridge seconds before it falls. The Death Eaters' path through London is brutal. They destroy Diagon Alley, abduct Ollivander, and send a clear message: nowhere is safe. Bellatrix Lestrange, with her signature maniacal laugh, is seen hurling curses into buildings. Fenrir Greyback, in wolfish glee, charges through the night sky. These aren't faceless villains anymore, they're terrorists on a mission. The collapse of the bridge doesn't kill any named characters, but it kills the illusion of safety. And for a moment, the magical and non-magical worlds are equally vulnerable. Number 13. Fred and George's escape from Umbridge. The moment Fred and George Weasley turned their backs on Hogwarts as students and walked out in a blaze of rebellion is etched into the hearts of every reader and viewer of the Harry Potter series. It was not just a prank, not just an escape. It was a statement. It was defiance against the suffocating tyranny of Dolores Umbridge, and it was the kind of magical chaos that only the Weasley twins could orchestrate with such elegance, humour, and flair. Their grand exit in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix stands as one of the most liberating scenes in the series, both in the book and in the film, but the film brought the moment to life in a way that transformed protest into performance art. In the book, the twins had been increasingly rebellious, testing the limits of Umbridge's patience. Their jokes had grown from innocent mischief to outright resistance. They had become a symbol of hope among students who were otherwise too frightened to act. When Umbridge banned all student organizations not approved by her, in a series of proclamations that multiplied on the walls like a plague, It was the Weasleys who pushed back, not with violence, but with imagination. "You're a prefect, aren't you, Percy?" Fred had once said mockingly of their older brother. "You should know what we're up to. We've decided we don't care about school anymore." Their final act began with a bang, literally. In the film, this is where director David Yates unleashed a visual spectacle. The camera followed Dolores Umbridge as she patrolled the corridors, only to be interrupted by an explosion that echoed through the stone walls. Fireworks erupted into dragons and Catherine wheels. Rockets screamed past terrified teachers and jubilant students. The sky above the great hall was lit with swirling sparks that shaped themselves into dancing figures and fire-breathing beasts. It wasn't just a distraction, it was a declaration. Hogwarts was not hers to control. In the book, Rowling describes the chaos in vivid detail. A firework display exploded in mid-air, and the noise was deafening. Catherine wheels whirled around the ceiling, rockets soared into the air, leaving fiery trails behind them, and loud bangs echoed off the stone walls. This was no ordinary prank. Fred and George had weaponized joy, laughter, and colour. Where Umbridge sought silence and control, the twins answered with volume and wonder. Their choice of weapons, Weasley's wildfire. Whiz-bangs was intentional. They had engineered them for maximum disruption and unpredictable beauty. One firework turned into a dragon that chased Umbridge down a corridor. Another transformed into a sparkling phoenix that soared above the heads of amazed students. The Weasleys had done their homework, just not in the way the school intended. Their mastery of enchantments, charm work, and inventiveness was on full display. It's no surprise they later opened Weasley's Wizard Wheezes in Diagon Alley. They had, after all, already turned a school into their stage. Filch's role in the chaos was comedic gold. The grumpy caretaker, loyal to Umbridge's authoritarian regime, charged through the halls with a mop, a bucket, and absolutely no hope. He tried to catch the fireworks in nets, soak them in water, and even bash them with a broom. Nothing worked. Every step he took was met with another explosion of colour, noise, and mischief. His utter frustration added another layer of humour to the scene. The twins knew exactly who their enemies were, and Filch's dogged, fruitless attempts to restore order made him a perfect foil. As students gathered in the corridors, cheering and clapping, the atmosphere became electric. Hogwarts, usually so cloaked in tradition and rule, became alive with resistance. Professor McGonagall, never one to openly defy authority, allowed herself a rare smile. Even some of the more rigid professors seemed to enjoy the spectacle. The twins hadn't just escaped, they had inspired. They made the impossible seem possible, even in the darkest of times. In the book, as the smoke cleared and the echoes of laughter began to fade, Fred and George made their move. They summoned their brooms with a whistle, and as the crowd parted, they rose into the air like conquering heroes. George shouted to the crowd, "If anyone fancies buying a portable swamp, as demonstrated upstairs, come see us in Diagon Alley, Weasley's Wizard Wheezes." And then came the final line, sharp and resonant, "Give her hell from us, Peeves." That line wasn't just for laughs, it was a call to arms. Even Peeves, the poltergeist who had tormented students for centuries, paused to salute them. He bowed low and tipped an imaginary hat as Fred and George soared out through the shattered glass of the castle's entrance. It was a moment of unity. Chaos had joined hands with rebellion. The school had found its heart again. Peeves's newfound loyalty to the twins was symbolic. Even mischief, when given purpose, could become a force of good. The film added something more: scale. The flight of the twins was framed with wide shots of the entire school, students leaning out of balconies, teachers craning their necks and Umbridge screeching like a banshee in the background. The music soared, rising with the twins as they made their exit. It felt triumphant, cinematic, unforgettable. It was freedom in motion. Fred and George's exit from Hogwarts was not just a stunt, it was a protest. It was a carefully crafted act of defiance against a system that had become cruel and oppressive. And it resonated. Students who had been afraid to speak out now found their voices. Dumbledore's army would continue, not in secret, but with renewed strength. The twins had opened a door, and others would walk through it. Number 14, the first broomstick lesson. The Hogwarts courtyard echoed with anticipation. The air was crisp, the sky an autumn blue, and a group of first-year students stood beside brooms lined neatly on the grass. There, on the threshold of their magical education, they were about to experience something no textbook could prepare them for. The first flying lesson wasn't just an introduction to broomsticks, it was an invitation to a world where gravity bent to will, and magic made the impossible feel natural. Madam Hooch, with her short, spiky grey hair and piercing yellow hawk eyes, was the embodiment of no-nonsense authority. "Stick out your right hand over the broom and say, 'Up!'" she barked, pacing between the students. The moment was simple, yet charged with a kind of sacred energy. In the book Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, this scene is only briefly described, a fleeting moment amid the flood of new experiences Harry faces in his first year. But that single word, "up," was a rite of passage. Harry's broom leapt into his hand immediately. It responded to him like an extension of his body. "Up," he had said, and it came. Ron's broom rolled over. Neville's didn't budge. The magic of flying was elusive, unpredictable, almost personal. It revealed not only a student's magical potential, but their connection to instinct, courage, and trust. In that instant, Harry wasn't just a boy with a broom, he was someone chosen by the sky. But where the book gave us a taste, the film adaptation turned that taste into a feast for the senses. Director Chris Columbus and composer John Williams understood that flying wasn't just about motion, it was about emotion. The music swells as Harry lifts off the ground, and with every note, the audience lifts with him. The wind tousles his hair, the courtyard shrinks beneath his feet, and his eyes widen, not with fear, but with joy. This wasn't a broomstick anymore, it was freedom. The camera doesn't remain static. It soars with Harry, weaving through the air, mimicking his newfound agility. The visuals evoke the sensation of weightlessness, and for a few breathtaking seconds, we aren't just watching Harry fly, we're flying with him. The sunlight glints off his glasses, his robes flap wildly, and he circles above the stone archways like a bird that has finally remembered how to use its wings. Neville Longbottom, poor and hapless, becomes the unfortunate catalyst of Harry's ascent to fame. He loses control of his broom, shoots into the sky, and falls, injuring his wrist. The class erupts into panic, and Madam Hooch rushes Neville to the hospital wing. But not before sternly warning the students, "Anyone touching a broomstick before I come back gets expelled." A line etched with tension. Draco Malfoy, sneering as ever, finds Neville's remembrall on the grass. Holding it high, he taunts the class. "Remember this? It's that stupid thing Longbottom's gran sent him." His voice is cruel, calculated. In the book, it's at this moment that Harry breaks the rules, not for glory, but for justice. He mounts his broom not out of arrogance, but to stop a bully. "Give it here, Malfoy," Harry says. And when Draco takes off, daring Harry to chase him, the real lesson begins. Harry rockets into the sky without training, without permission, without hesitation. His instincts take over. The broom responds to him like it's been waiting all along. He turned his broomstick sharply to face Malfoy in mid-air, the book says. and there was a loud gasp from below as he shot towards him like a javelin. This isn't just flying, it's a declaration, a moment of identity. In the film, this scene becomes one of the most exhilarating sequences in The Philosopher's Stone. John Williams's score pulses with rhythm and flight. The camera twirls around the boys, capturing the duel of movement and ego in the sky. Malfoy tosses the Remembrall into the air, expecting Harry to fail. But Harry dives, headfirst, arms outstretched, robes streaming, and catches it inches from the ground. It's breathtaking. This moment changes everything. Minerva McGonagall, who happens to witness Harry's spectacular feat, doesn't punish him. Instead, she sees his raw talent. "Never in all my time at Hogwarts has a first year flown like that," she says. And so begins Harry's journey into Quidditch, the sport that will become part of his identity, a symbol of his bravery and reflexes. But the true power of the flying lesson lies not in what it leads to, but in what it reveals. In the book, Rowling writes, Harry knew somehow what to do. He leaned forward and the broom jumped lightly off the ground. It's a subtle line, almost easy to miss, but within it is the heart of the story. Harry, a boy with no magical upbringing, finds something inside himself that he never knew existed, an unspoken bond with magic. There is a reason this scene resonates with so many fans. Flying is not just a magical skill, it is a metaphor for freedom, for the discovery of one's strength and for defying expectations. Harry, the boy who lived in a cupboard, is now the boy who flies. The cinematography emphasizes this transformation. There is a close-up of Harry's face as he rises into the air, not with fear, but with wonder. The wind rushes past, and the world below becomes distant, insignificant. His classmates watch in awe, some with envy, some with admiration. This scene also serves to separate Harry from the crowd, not as a celebrity, not as the boy who lived, but as someone who possesses innate magic, uncontaminated by fame. His talent isn't learned, it's felt. It's earned through courage, instinct, and the refusal to let injustice win. Number 15, Final Duel, Harry versus Voldemort in the courtyard. The final battle between Harry Potter and Lord Voldemort is one of the most anticipated and climactic moments in the entire saga. The contrast between the way this scene is depicted in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows and the Warner Brothers film adaptation is striking, not just in terms of location, but in tone, symbolism, and emotional weight. While the book places the final duel in the Great Hall of Hogwarts, surrounded by allies and witnesses, the film opts for a more cinematic and intimate setting, the open ruins of the castle courtyard, where ashes fall like snow and magic crackles in the air. This choice changes the atmosphere of the final encounter dramatically, shifting it from a public reckoning to a deeply personal confrontation. In the book, the battle is not just about two wizards clashing wands, it is a reckoning in front of the entire wizarding world. The Great Hall is packed with survivors of the battle, including the Weasley family, Minerva McGonagall, Kingsley Shacklebolt, and countless others who have fought and suffered. Harry steps forward in full view of everyone, revealing himself alive after Voldemort believed he had died in the Forbidden Forest. The moment is charged with awe and disbelief. "Harry Potter is dead," Voldemort had proclaimed, and now here stands the boy who lived, alive, breathing, and full of fire. The lie is shattered. Harry confronts Voldemort not just with magic, but with knowledge. He speaks to the Dark Lord, explaining calmly and clearly the true ownership of the Elder Wand. "You're right, I've got nothing to lose," Harry says. "You're the one who's got to try and save your own life." This is not the speech of a boy who is afraid. It is the voice of someone who has accepted death and returned from it with purpose. The hall watches as Harry tells Voldemort that Snape was never the true master of the Elder Wand, that it was Draco Malfoy who disarmed Dumbledore, and that Harry had since disarmed Draco. This critical piece of information changes everything. Voldemort's downfall is sealed not just by his cruelty or ambition, but by his misunderstanding of loyalty and wand lore. The Elder Wand, the Death Stick, refuses to kill its true master. When Voldemort casts the killing curse, Avada Kedavra, at Harry, and Harry responds with Expelliarmus, the spells collide. The green and red lights meet in mid-air, and Voldemort's curse rebounds upon himself. He dies, not with an explosion or fiery demise, but simply falls to the floor, lifeless, human, empty. Tom Riddle hit the floor with a mundane finality, Rowling writes. The world witnesses not a Dark Lord's epic defeat, but the fall of a mortal man. In contrast, the film takes a different approach entirely. The cinematic version isolates Harry and Voldemort. They do not duel in the Great Hall, but among the shattered remains of Hogwarts' outer grounds. There is no audience to witness the end, only the scorched stones, the crumbling towers, and the ghosts of battle. This creative decision strips away the grandeur of the public spectacle, replacing it with raw emotion and haunting imagery. The two adversaries circle each other like predators. It's not a debate, it's a fight to the death. The visual storytelling intensifies the moment. Voldemort's face twists with fury and desperation as his spells scream across the ruins. Harry, bloodied and bruised, stands his ground. The filmmakers emphasize the primal energy of the confrontation. Their wands clash not in elegant streams of light, but in explosions, surges of magical force that ripple through the stones. At one point, Harry and Voldemort are even physically thrown together, tumbling through the air as if their magic is trying to tear the universe apart. It's visceral, chaotic, and unforgettable. One of the most striking differences is the final blow. In the book, Voldemort dies by his own spell. It is clean, logical, and symbolic. He is destroyed by his own misunderstanding of power. In the movie, however, Voldemort dies in a visually spectacular fashion. As the final spell strikes him, his body begins to unravel. His face fractures, his skin turns to ash, and he disintegrates into the wind like burnt paper. It is poetic and eerie, a dark figure quite literally dissolving into nothingness. There is no body left to mourn, no remains to bury. Evil is gone, not just defeated, but erased. And this difference is more than cosmetic. It changes the message. In the book, Voldemort dies a man, stripped of his grandeur, his death a warning against pride and fear of death. In the film, Voldemort dies like a phantom, a thing not quite of this world, a monster consumed by his own darkness. Both approaches have merit. One is deeply literary, rooted in the themes of mortality and redemption. The other is visually cathartic, offering viewers a dramatic and haunting spectacle. The audience reaction is also shaped by this contrast. In the book, there is a collective gasp, a breath held and then released. The survivors gather, look at the body, and begin to understand what this moment means. Harry is not just a hero. He is a man who has walked through death and emerged changed. He doesn't gloat, he doesn't celebrate. He simply explains what happened, gives the wand back, and says he will not seek to own it. I think it's time to repair my own wand, he says, choosing loyalty over power. The scene closes with quiet understanding. In the movie, however, the moment is thunderous. There's a crescendo of music, the blinding light of the final spell, and Voldemort's disintegration into dust. It is cinematic closure, pure and simple, and yet afterward there is a sense of relief more than reflection. The film emphasizes the emotional climax, the catharsis of victory. The quiet wisdom of Harry's choice to return the Elder Wand to Dumbledore's tomb is shown later, in silence, with only Hermione and Ron at his side. Number 16. Draco and Harry's encounter on the Hogwarts Express. The night was unnaturally still, as if the very air around the Forbidden Forest held its breath. Within the pages of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, J.K. Rowling guided readers through an eerie and pivotal moment. Professor Remus Lupin, gentle, wise, and beloved by many, transforming into something terrifying before the very eyes of his students. The moment, though brief in the book, echoed with the chilling reality that even those we admire can harbour dangerous secrets. But it was in the film adaptation that this scene reached its full, heart-stopping intensity, evolving into a horrifying transformation that reshaped how we saw Lupin and the world of magic itself. As the silvery glow of the full moon poured over the grass, Lupin froze mid-sentence. His voice faltered. A sudden tremble ran down his spine. Harry, Hermione, and Ron stood only feet away, watching, confused, then frightened. "He's a werewolf," Hermione whispered, the words heavy with dread. In the novel Rowling describes, Lupin's face had lengthened, his teeth were elongating, he was turning into a werewolf. The prose is deliberate and restrained, allowing the imagination to run wild. But the film gives no room for mercy. Director Alfonso Cuarón transforms that moment into a visual nightmare. The camera lingers on Lupin's silhouette, bathed in a ghostly beam of moonlight. His breath quickens. His bones crack audibly, gruesomely, under his own skin. His face contorts, elongates. His cries shift into snarls. The pupils dilate, his eyes glaze over, and something human is lost in the blur of muscle and fur. Every second stretches with unbearable tension, and the viewer is trapped, like the students, with no exit from the unfolding horror. The musical score by John Williams heightens the suspense with an eerie crescendo. A low hum begins, soft and uncertain, then suddenly strings slice through the silence. The transformation becomes a grotesque dance of agony set to a rhythm of fear. One might forget in that moment that this was their trusted professor, the man who taught Harry how to conjure a Patronus, who smiled with kind eyes and offered chocolate after Dementor attacks. This was not just any monster, this was Remus Lupin. What makes the scene so unsettling is not just the physical metamorphosis, but the emotional betrayal it represents. The man who stood as a symbol of calm, wisdom, and control is suddenly rendered helpless by nature. "Get away from me," Lupin had cried, backing toward the forest, his voice choked. But it was too late. The moon had already claimed him. This moment also changes how the audience perceives the boundaries of safety in Hogwarts. Up until now, the school had felt like a haven. Even its dangers, trolls in the dungeon, a cursed diary, or Quidditch accidents, were manageable, often with the help of a clever spell or adult supervision. But here was a teacher, one they trusted, becoming the very creature they were taught to fear. The illusion of complete safety cracked. In the book, Rowling subtly reinforces this theme. Sirius Black, after years in Azkaban, confronts Lupin with both understanding and sorrow. "You'd have to be pretty stupid to forget it was a full moon tonight," Sirius mutters. It's not just a reminder of what Lupin is, but of what he has fought so hard to control. The burden of his condition has always weighed on him. "I am not a safe person to be around once a month," Lupin once told Dumbledore, and this scene shows that cost in full. Lupin's condition was always meant to be an allegory, one for chronic illness, for stigma, for the danger of the misunderstood. But when his body contorts into something beastly and unrecognizable, the metaphor gains teeth. You see his pain, his shame, and the uncontrollable nature of what he's become. The special effects team accentuated the inhuman quality of the werewolf, opting not for the classic wolfman hybrid, but for a gaunt, almost skeletal figure, a creature that had lost all traces of the human soul. And yet even in this terrifying form, the tragedy of Remus Lupin doesn't disappear, it deepens. The students, especially Harry, are not simply terrified by a monster, they are terrified by someone they care about being consumed by something beyond their control. It's a fear not just of death, but of helplessness. When Lupin charges toward Hermione in the woods, his mouth open in a silent snarl, it is Buckbeak who intervenes, a creature also misunderstood, misjudged, and condemned earlier in the story. The symbolism is sharp. One outcast saves others from another. The line between beast and man, between danger and kindness, is blurred throughout the entire story. But in this moment it crashes together in a violent spectacle. One can't help but recall Lupin's earlier lessons in the classroom, where he introduced boggarts and dementors with calm precision. "The very worst thing you can do," he said gently, "is be afraid." But now he is fear incarnate. This duality, teacher and terror, friend and threat, is what makes the transformation scene so emotionally devastating. Rowling never lingers long on gore. Her style avoids the gratuitous, but she knows when to let the shadow fall just long enough. The line in the book, "Lupin's head was lengthening, his shoulders hunching, hair sprouting painfully across his skin," is short, powerful, and leaves the reader stunned. But the film goes further. You hear every snap, every moan. You see the human disappear before your eyes. David Thewlis, who portrayed Lupin, later remarked in interviews how difficult it was to strike the balance between vulnerability and horror. "He's a good man cursed by something he never asked for," he said. And that is what the scene delivers, a man cornered by fate, unable to shield others from what he becomes. The students' reactions in the film are brief, but telling. Hermione's face collapses in disbelief, eyes wide with disbelief and sorrow. Ron, already injured, looks frozen in dread. Harry steps forward instinctively, wand raised, but even he hesitates. How do you fight something that was once your protector? That emotional complexity is part of why the scene works so well. It's not just about the horror of a transformation, it's about the pain of betrayal, the tragedy of a good man undone by something ancient and violent within himself. Lupin becomes a symbol of suppressed fear, of what lies beneath the surface when the moon is full. Sirius's panic in this moment is palpable. "Run!" he shouts, not out of cowardice, but out of a desperate desire to save them from the friend he once trusted. And Peter Pettigrew, cowering nearby, escapes in the chaos, his cowardice overshadowed by the werewolf's rampage. It's a brutal reminder that sometimes monsters are loud and obvious, and sometimes they're hiding in plain sight. It's easy to forget that this all unfolds in a matter of minutes, and yet it changes everything. Lupin resigns shortly after. "Parents will not want someone like me teaching their children," he tells Harry, his voice filled with quiet grief. The transformation has cost him not just control, but trust, a truth made unbearable when one remembers how deeply he valued his place at Hogwarts. This moment also builds on the theme of dual identity that runs throughout Prisoner of Azkaban. Sirius is a fugitive who is innocent. Scabbers is a pet who is a murderer. Lupin is a teacher who is a werewolf. The world is no longer black and white for Harry. Safety is not guaranteed. Trust must be earned and held carefully. And yet, despite the terror, the scene is strangely human. It invites empathy, not just fear. You do not walk away thinking Lupin is a monster. You walk away thinking he's a man who suffers and who, despite his best efforts, couldn't prevent others from suffering too. That's a rare kind of horror, the kind that hurts more than it shocks. In a way, this moment also deepens the connection between Harry and Lupin. He sees, perhaps for the first time, that being strong doesn't mean being invincible. Lupin had always seemed composed, capable, even fatherly. But now Harry sees him broken, and yet he still admires him. Perhaps even more than before, the film and book complement each other beautifully here. Where the novel gives space for the reader's imagination to picture the horror, the film gives it flesh and bone. And both serve the same truth. The world of magic is not free from darkness. Sometimes it lives inside the kindest hearts. That scene, Lupin in the moonlight, shuddering, changing, snarling, remains one of the most unforgettable in the entire series, not because it's the scariest, but because it reminds us that even in a world of spells and potions, some battles cannot be won with a wand, some curses are born in silence, and some heroes carry monsters within them. Number 17, the ghost of Helena Ravenclaw, the Grey Lady. Of all the conversations Harry Potter has had in the course of his journey, few are as overlooked and yet so emotionally powerful as the one he shares with the Grey Lady, Helena Ravenclaw. In the final book, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the scene is functional, meant to provide the location of Rowena Ravenclaw's lost diadem, the final Horcrux. Yet, in the film adaptation, this encounter is reborn. It becomes a haunting moment filled with sorrow, guilt, and the shattered remnants of a long-dead woman's regret. And through this dramatic reinterpretation, we are reminded that even ghosts carry burdens they cannot lay down. Helena Ravenclaw was not merely a whispering spirit that haunted the corridors of Hogwarts. She was the daughter of Rowena Ravenclaw herself, a founder of the great school. In life, Helena had been brilliant, proud, and terribly flawed. In death, she lingered, wrapped in the bitterness of her betrayal and the shadow of a mistake that shaped the fate of the wizarding world. When Harry finds her, she is not waiting to help. She is avoiding the pain of her past. Actress Gemma Jones gives Helena not just a spectral appearance, but a soul, fragile, wounded, and deeply human. In the book, Harry is desperate. Time is running out. Voldemort is closing in. He must find the final Horcrux. "The diadem of Ravenclaw," he says. "Where is it? You must know." His tone is urgent, but Helena resists. "I had hoped," she murmurs, "that you would have some honor." It's a cold rebuke. But what follows in the film is not simply resistance. It is a confession of loss of pride and a daughter's tragic misstep that unraveled her family's legacy. The filmmakers made a subtle, powerful choice to slow the moment down. Instead of a rushed interrogation, we watch Harry reach out, not as a soldier, not as a savior, but as a young man willing to listen. In this version, Helena does not simply tell her tale, she relives it. Her voice trembles, her face tightens with emotion. Her eyes, hollow and ancient, seem to hold the echo of a scream that never quite left her lips. "I stole the diadem," she whispers, and the room seems to darken. "I wanted to be cleverer than my mother." This line, not present in the book, is perhaps one of the most devastating truths of the series. It's not greed that doomed Helena Ravenclaw. It was a child's desperate desire to outshine a parent, and in that desire she destroyed everything she might have inherited. The cinematic Helena is not a passive wraith. She is restless, tormented. She floats through Hogwarts as a woman unable to forgive herself. When she says, "He defiled it with dark magic," her voice quivers with loathing. She speaks of Tom Riddle, the man who charmed her into revealing the diadem's secret hiding place. And it is not merely Voldemort's betrayal that hurts her. It is the shame of having been deceived. Again, in the book, she says to Harry, "I thought he was flattering me. I was wrong. He was flattering me to learn my mother's secrets." But in the film, this is more than exposition, it is self-flagellation. Helena's every word is coloured by the pain of being used. Her spectral presence becomes an embodiment of how guilt can linger far beyond death, festering into something eternal. This scene also highlights Harry's evolution. In earlier books, he might have demanded answers, insisted, shouted, but here he lowers his voice. He steps back. He waits. He understands instinctively that this ghost is not an obstacle. She is a person, and one who has waited centuries for someone to see her pain. And that simple act of empathy becomes the key that unlocks the final clue in his quest. The contrast between the book and the film is stark. In Rowling's prose, the Grey Lady is a distant, elegant figure who ultimately relents, but in the film, she is a storm. Her grief pulses through the screen. When she hisses, you seek to use it against him, and Harry replies with quiet certainty, "Yes, I do. The tension is almost unbearable. It is a moment of truth for both of them." Helena's tale is more than just backstory. It is a mirror to Voldemort himself. She too was seduced by the promise of greatness. She too defied family. She too committed a betrayal. And just as Voldemort split his soul through murder, Helena shattered hers through guilt. Only she, unlike him, is capable of sorrow. Her punishment is eternal, but it is not self-righteous. It is quiet and unbearably sad. Perhaps the most poignant moment in the film is when Helena finally points toward the diadem's resting place. She doesn't simply say, "It's in the room of requirement." She almost breathes the answer, as if releasing a burden she's carried for too long. The weight of centuries falls from her translucent shoulders. And in that moment, the ghost finally begins to forgive herself. This reimagined scene also gives Helena something rarely seen in the wizarding world: agency. In the book, she tells her story, then vanishes. But in the film, she chooses to help. She chooses to trust. And that choice gives her a kind of redemption, a release from the endless loop of regret that defined her afterlife. It is easy to forget that ghosts in Rowling's world are not mere plot devices. They are memories with mouths. Sir Nicholas, the Bloody Baron, the Fat Friar, all of them carry regrets, but none more so than Helena. Her pain is not a quirk. It is a tragedy that shaped the course of magical history. Without her theft, there would be no lost diadem. Without her confession, Harry's journey would have ended in failure. The choice of Gemma Jones as Helena Ravenclaw was inspired. Her portrayal is not showy or theatrical. It is brittle, fragile. Her voice shakes not from fear, but from emotion long buried. And in her sunken eyes we see a woman who remembers too much and wishes she could forget. She is more than a ghost. She is a warning. The scene also brings us closer to Rowena Ravenclaw herself, a figure who, though long dead, haunts the story through her daughter's words. We learn that Rowena died of a broken heart, never admitting that her daughter had run away. It is a chilling line: two powerful women bound by pride and silence, destroyed by the same secret. A family torn apart, not by war, but by misunderstanding. In this sense, Helena's story is a quieter tragedy within a louder war. As battles rage through Hogwarts, as giants roar and spells fly, Harry takes a moment to kneel before the dead and listen. And what he hears is not just where to find a Horcrux. He hears the echo of a daughter's remorse. He learns that not all battles are fought with wands. Some are fought in the heart, and some are never truly won. The contrast between the spectral Grey Lady and the monstrous spirit of Voldemort could not be greater. One chose darkness and denied regret. The other was broken by it. And in the end, it is Helena who finds a sliver of peace, because she chose, finally, to help. Her redemption is small, almost imperceptible, but it matters. And that perhaps is Rowling's quiet morale. When Harry leaves Helena, he does not thank her with words. He doesn't need to. Their conversation has already become something sacred. He carries her sorrow with him, and in that way he honors her story. She is no longer just a footnote in Hogwarts history, she is a vital part of its salvation. The legacy of the Grey Lady is one of melancholy beauty. Her final gift is not information but vulnerability, and that vulnerability saves the world. In showing Harry her wound, she helps heal his, and in recognizing her pain, he becomes the man capable of facing Voldemort not with rage but with compassion. So often in Harry Potter, power is shown through might, through magic, through defiance. But here, in this quiet, darkened hall, power is something else entirely. It is the willingness to speak your shame, to face your past, to choose to help, even when you have no reason to. That is the power Helena Ravenclaw finds in death, and that is the power Harry learns to carry into the final fight. As the battle for Hogwarts rages on, the audience never forgets this ghostly conversation. Amidst the noise and chaos, Helena's voice lingers like a melody. Sad, broken, true. She was once a girl who wanted to be cleverer than her mother, and she became a ghost who helped save the world. Number 18, the aerial battle over London. The night sky over Little Whinging was unnaturally quiet. There was a kind of silence that precedes storms, the hush that blankets the world just before chaos tears through it. That night, chaos came not in thunder or wind, but in flashes of green and red, the roar of enchanted motorbikes, and the deadly whispers of spells cast at high speed through the dark. The Battle of the Seven Potters was never just a simple escape. In the film adaptation of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 1, this sequence explodes onto the screen like a spell gone wild, and yet it is intricately choreographed, emotionally charged, and utterly unforgettable. The movie took what J.K. Rowling described in mere pages and gave it wings, quite literally, transforming a tense, covert operation into one of the most cinematic moments in the entire franchise. "They'll be after me first," Harry insists in the book, ever selfless, ever ready to sacrifice. The plan is simple. 6 decoys will take Polyjuice Potion and become Harry Potter, while each is escorted by a member of the Order of the Phoenix. The goal, reach safety. The risk, astronomical. In the book, the journey begins and ends swiftly, and we get a glimpse of aerial duels, a short description of broomsticks zipping through the sky. But the film dares to dwell in this moment, letting it breathe, letting it burn. When Hagrid arrives on Sirius Black's enchanted flying motorbike, the audience knows something massive is coming. The bike, once a whimsical relic of baby Harry's escape, now becomes a symbol of his last flight as a child protected by others. That same machine will now carry him through death, fire, and loss. And when Hagrid says, "Hang on, Harry," we do. From the moment they lift off, the film's direction changes tempo. The camera follows them up through clouds that ripple like ocean waves. And then, silence. A breathtaking moment of serenity, and then, boom, spells erupt. The Death Eaters are already waiting. The ambush is brutal, sudden, and merciless. Flashes of green, Avada Kedavra. Blue streaks stupefy. They streak past London's sleeping skyline, weaving between cranes, zipping under bridges, barely avoiding the Thames. It's wizard warfare in a Muggle world, and it's terrifyingly beautiful. The flying scenes pull us into the chaos, turning the viewer into another rider on a broomstick, feeling every twist, every near miss, every close call. In the book, Rowling writes, "A jet of green light illuminated the darkness. Harry ducked, and something whooshed over his head. That line becomes an entire action sequence in the film, as Harry dives through a whirl of spells, spinning above the gherkin, rocketing past the London Eye. The city becomes a ghostly backdrop to this ballet of death. The visual juxtaposition is stunning, ancient magic colliding with modern architecture. And then comes the tragedy. Hedwig's death in the book is almost casual. A stray curse strikes the snowy owl inside her cage. But in the film, she dies a hero. She's not in a cage, she's free, flying alongside Harry, protecting him. When a Death Eater aims at Harry, it's Hedwig who gets in the way. Her wings spread wide, she intercepts the curse meant for him. It's a moment of pure sacrifice. The audience gasps, not just because she dies, but because she chooses to. It's a small moment, yet it sets the emotional tone for the entire film. David Yates, the director, made a choice here that rippled through the fandom. By turning Hedwig's death into a conscious act, he elevated her from a pet to a guardian. It's one of those rare cinematic deviations from the book that not only work, they amplify. Rowling herself would later acknowledge the strength of this scene and how it added emotional gravity to an already dark narrative. As they race toward the safe house, the battle intensifies. The choreography is mind-blowing. Tonks and Ron banking hard to avoid fireballs, Lupin casting shields in mid-air, Fred and George laughing in the face of death. But it's not all victory. Mad-Eye Moody falls. The screen doesn't show us his death, and perhaps that's the point. We feel his absence more keenly for not witnessing it. The indomitable aura, scarred, gruff, invincible, vanishes. And when they land, the words sting Mad-Eye's dead. Each pair suffers differently. One twin loses an ear. It's not the ear that matters, it's the eroism. George jokes, bloody but unbroken. The loss is grim, but the spirit remains intact. This balance of humour and horror is quintessential Potter. In the book, Harry is terrified when Voldemort himself appears. He was flying, unsupported, without broomstick or thestral, and he was moving fast. Rowling paints a chilling picture of the Dark Lord gliding through the night like death incarnate. The film gives this horror form. Voldemort appears, eyes burning with hatred, voice like ice. You're mine, Potter. The wand he wields is not his, Lucius Malfoy's, and it betrays him. The spell backfires, sending both wizard and wand tumbling. That detail, Voldemort's failure, foreshadows the importance of wand lore that will dominate the rest of the story. The chase ends in fire, sparks, and a crash. The motorbike smashes into the earth in a fiery tumble, and Hagrid, ever the shield, takes the brunt of it. Harry crawls from the wreckage, dazed, breathless, alive. Barely. And so the film closes its first major action set-piece with silence, smoke, and the smell of burning rubber. The contrast between book and film here is fascinating. Rowling, always a mistress of pacing, kept the aerial battles swift, a blur of panic. The film chooses to linger, to paint each stroke of light in the sky with purpose. It understands that this isn't just a getaway, Dudley, it's a goodbye to innocence, to youth, to safety. After this flight, nothing will ever be the same. What makes this sequence so unforgettable is the way it plays with scale. 1 minute, we're zooming past London's glittering skyline. The next, we're tight on Harry's face, his glasses cracked, his breath ragged. We feel the weight of this battle because we are made to see every inch of it, from the wide majesty of the city to the tears in Harry's eyes. Even the musical score leans in. Alexandre Desplat's haunting arrangement underscores the urgency with mournful strings and rising brass. When Hedwig falls, the music doesn't swell, no, it breaks. A single note, like a scream cut short, echoes through the dark. And yet in the midst of all this, the film remembers something vital: character. Every rider in the sky is someone we know, someone we care about. The stakes are personal. The losses matter. That's why the scene hurts. Because it's not just a battle, it's a reckoning. Fred and George, who've always been comic relief, fly like warriors. Their spells are sharp, their focus deadly. Fleur, elegant and fierce, rides like a Valkyrie beside Bill. Even Mundungus Fletcher, cowardly and greedy, shows a flash of humanity before he abandons his post. These are not caricature. They are people, caught in the storm. The scene also cements a truth that Rowling repeats often: no one is safe. Not owls, not legends, not even auras. War is not poetic. It's messy, cruel, and fast. The film honors that chaos while still giving it form, a rare magic in cinema. Fans debate whether this is the best action sequence in the series. Some cite the Battle of Hogwarts, others the Department of Mystery's duel, but few can deny the raw power of the flight from Privet Drive. It is war on broomsticks, terror in the clouds, love written in fire across the sky. There is poetry here, hidden in the terror. The way London gleams beneath the fighters, unaware. The way Harry clings to Hagrid, still the boy who once rode in his sidecar at 11. The way the Order soars into the night, defiant, brave, outnumbered. This is not just spectacle, it's storytelling at its finest. We're all as good as dead if we don't get out of here, Kingsley had warned. And yet they go, for Harry, for hope, for the world. And when Harry lands, smoke-streaked and bloodied, he has changed. We see it in his eyes. The boy who flew into the sky that night was not the same one who fell back to earth. He knows now war doesn't wait for readiness. It comes, unbidden, winged, and merciless. This single sequence rewrote the language of magical combat. No more wands flicking in candlelit halls. No more duels across dinner tables. This was speed, sweat, smoke, and death. And that is why it lives on. Not just as an impressive piece of film, but as a turning point in the mythos of Harry Potter. Not just the night the Order flew, but the night the war truly began. Number 19, the mirror of Erised scene. The cold stones of the abandoned classroom echoed under Harry's hesitant footsteps. He had followed his instincts more than directions, wandering the vast Hogwarts corridors under the cloak of night. The mysterious mirror had called to him like a soft whisper in the dark, drawing him in with a pull he couldn't explain. And there it stood, tall, ancient, with a golden frame inscribed with words he couldn't read yet, but that would soon haunt his soul. Erised stra eru oit ube kafru oit on wosi. Harry stood before the mirror of Erised with wide, unsure eyes. In the silence of the room, his breath fogged the glass, and then movement. Not his own. Figures shimmered behind his reflection. Two people, a man and a woman, smiling warmly, gazing at him with love so deep it rooted him to the spot. "Mum," he whispered. "Dad?" His voice cracked, too fragile for a boy his age. The boy who lived, yes, but also the boy who had lost. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, J.K. Rowling described the moment with beautiful restraint. Harry was staring at his parents for the first time in his life, she wrote. There was no overstatement, no grand emotion painted in dramatic strokes. The magic was subtle, understated, almost fragile. Harry sees a woman with dark red hair and a kind face who is crying silently. The man beside her has untidy hair and glasses. Harry recognizes the shape of his own knees, the thinness of his face. But Rowling doesn't press the moment too hard. She lets it breathe, lets the reader feel the ache between the lines. Chris Columbus, director of the first film, took this quiet heartbreak and illuminated it with cinematic tenderness. The scene, though brief in minutes, is one of the emotional centers of the Philosopher's Stone. It's not merely a magical discovery. It's the unveiling of a lifetime of loss. The music by John Williams starts softly like a lullaby from another world. A piano plays distant chords echoing like memories just out of reach. The classroom is cast in soft, golden light, as though time itself is holding its breath. And Daniel Radcliffe, only 11 years old, gives a performance that reached beyond child acting. His face, as he looks into the mirror, holds that impossible mix of joy and sorrow. He smiles, but tears well in his eyes. There is a vulnerability to him, raw and pure. He doesn't sob, he doesn't wail, but the quietness of his expression makes the loss thunder louder than words ever could. In that moment, Harry isn't the boy who lived. He's the boy who wants, more than anything, to be held by his mother, to be seen by his father. The mirror of Erised, unlike any magical object in the series, does not grant wishes. It reveals them. It does not act. It shows, and in doing so it cuts deep. It shows us nothing more or less than the deepest, most desperate desire of our hearts, Dumbledore tells Harry later. The danger of the mirror is not in what it does, but in what it offers, a lie wrapped in comfort, a chance to stand in the glow of what could never be again. And yet, what Columbus and Williams and Radcliffe gave us in the film was more than a visualization of grief. They gave us a boy stepping into the quiet space where longing lives. When Harry reaches out to touch the mirror, he doesn't touch the glass. He lifts his hand toward the reflection of his mother's hand, almost meeting it. Almost. There is no contact, only the unbearable closeness of the impossible. The brilliance of the film's scene is in its stillness. There are no explosions, no spells, no dialogue even, for long stretches. Just Harry, just his reflection, just the parents he never knew standing behind him like guardian ghosts. It's a testament to the power of cinema when silence speaks volumes. The camera lingers. It doesn't rush the moment. And in that stillness, the audience is allowed to feel everything Harry feels. The set design enhances this too. The room is empty, echoing his internal emptiness. The mirror, tall and majestic, feels like a doorway to a forgotten past. But it's not. It's a wall, one that separates him from what he wants most, what he needs and cannot have. In the book, the emotional impact is delivered through introspection. He had a powerful kind of ache inside him, half joy, half terrible sadness, Rowling writes. In the film, this ache is made visual. It drips from every frame. The way Harry's shoulders slightly fall. The way he leans toward the glass like he's about to collapse into it. The way his eyes dart, trying to memorize every detail of their faces. And yet, it's not just Harry's face that tells the story, it's the reflection. James stands tall, pride gleaming in his stance. Lily's eyes, Harry's eyes, are full of unshed tears. She looks at her son with infinite love, with the knowledge of everything he's yet to face. It's not just a happy scene, it's deeply sorrowful because we know, and she knows, she cannot reach out and pull him into her arms. This one scene adds more depth to Harry's character than any exposition could. We understand without a word how desperately he longs for connection, for belonging, for love not given out of obligation, but blood deep and eternal. And we understand, perhaps more than anywhere else in the series, just how lonely Harry has been. Radcliffe later said in interviews that this scene was one of the hardest to film, not because of the acting, but because of what it meant. He had to imagine a love he'd never experienced, and yet, somehow he found it. He reached into a place inside himself and pulled out something real. That's why this scene, decades later, still brings tears to so many. It's not because it's sad, it's because it's true. The mirror doesn't lie. That's the tragedy. It shows what could have been, and the heart can't help but believe it's real. Harry returns to it night after night, hoping they'll still be there, hoping he can stay in their gaze a moment longer. And that, Dumbledore warns, is its greatest danger. Men have wasted away before it, not knowing if what it shows is real or even possible. When Harry asks Dumbledore what he sees, the headmaster famously says, "I see myself holding a pair of thick, woolen socks." It's a joke, perhaps, but also a kindness, a way of shielding Harry from the full truth of longing. Dumbledore knows what Harry sees, and he knows the pain of wanting what death has taken. This scene, therefore, is not just about Harry, it's about grief, about loss, about every child who has looked to the stars and whispered the name of someone gone. It's about memory, about the ghost that lives inside a wish. And for all its magic, the mirror of Erised is the most human thing in the wizarding world. Fans often talk about how this scene set the emotional tone for the entire series. It taught viewers, especially young ones, that magic isn't always about wands and flying broomsticks. Sometimes magic is about facing your deepest hurt and choosing to walk away, because that's what Harry does. Eventually, he listens to Dumbledore, he lets go, he leaves the mirror, he chooses the living over the dead, but that choice, that scene, marks him forever. And it marks us too, because every time we watch it, we're reminded of something we've lost, and something we still hope to find. Even today, years after the first film's release, fans recount their first experience watching this moment in darkened cinemas, the stillness, the music, the tear in Harry's eye. Many admit they cried not because they missed someone, but because they suddenly understood what missing someone felt like. The legacy of the Mirror of Erised is more than magical. It is emotional literacy. It teaches us that wanting something deeply is not shameful, it's human. That to look at a mirror and hope is an act of bravery, not weakness. And that sometimes seeing what you cannot have helps you understand what you must do with what you do have. That's why this scene continues to matter. In a world of battles and spells and dark lords, a boy staring into a mirror remains one of the most powerful images in the Harry Potter universe. It's quiet, it's sad, and it's real. The kind of real that lingers long after the credits roll. Number 20, Molly against Bellatrix. Of all the duels in the final chapters of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the battle between Bellatrix Lestrange and Molly Weasley remains one of the most unexpected and electrifying moments in the entire saga. The sheer emotional intensity, the raw maternal fury, and the shocking end of one of Voldemort's most powerful followers combine into a scene that fans will never forget. In the book, it takes only a handful of lines to unfold, but on screen, the duel transforms into a fiery explosion of vengeance, power, and symbolism. In J.K. Rowling's novel, the moment is swift, decisive. During the chaos at the Battle of Hogwarts, as Bellatrix Lestrange hurls deadly curses toward Ginny, Hermione, and Luna, a voice cuts through the madness, fierce, primal, and unforgettable. "Not my daughter!" Molly Weasley roars, stepping between Bellatrix and her child. It's a line that has echoed through the minds of readers ever since, not only because of the unexpected profanity from the warm-hearted matriarch, but because of the stunning resolve behind it. In that moment, Molly is not a gentle homemaker with a cluttered kitchen and a clock that tracks her children's whereabouts. She is a lioness defending her cubs with teeth bared and claws extended. The duel that follows is surprisingly brief on the page. Molly's curse soared beneath Bellatrix's outstretched arm and hit her squarely in the chest, directly over her heart. Bellatrix's gloating smile froze, her eyes seemed to bulge. For the tiniest space of time, she knew what had happened, and then she toppled the grinning body of her last best lieutenant falling to the floor. Rowling doesn't embellish the fight with flashy details or a prolonged exchange of spells. Instead, she focuses on the inevitability of Bellatrix's fall. Evil is punished, a mother's love triumphs. But David Yates's cinematic interpretation turns this scene into something else entirely. A duel of mythic proportions, a spectacle of magical wrath and righteous vengeance. Helena Bonham Carter's portrayal of Bellatrix Lestrange throughout the series had already elevated the character to something almost operatic in her madness. She slinked, shrieked, laughed, and killed with a gleeful abandon that made her presence in every scene unsettling. By the time she faces Molly Weasley in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 2, her character had become a symbol of Voldemort's cruelty and chaos. Julie Walters playing Molly channels the full spectrum of a mother's fury in this cinematic clash. The line, "Not my daughter, you bitch," is delivered not with desperation, but with a calm, terrifying authority. It's a warning, her sentence passed. And from that moment, the duel explodes into a magical firefight. The air crackles with energy as curses fly like bullets. The scene is choreographed like a dance of destruction. Molly's calculated strikes, Bellatrix's manic dodges, the sweeping camera circling them like spectators at a gladiator match. This is no ordinary battle. It is a collision of two women forged in entirely different fires, one by hatred and obsession, the other by love and loss. Bellatrix's deranged laughter clashes against Molly's steely silence. The floor around them breaks and smoulders, sparks burst in mid-air. Each spell carries meaning. Not just incantations, but expressions of soul-deep emotion. This is not a duel for show, it's personal. And then, in a moment that visually diverges from the book, Molly's final spell strikes Bellatrix square in the chest. But instead of simply falling, Bellatrix explodes. Literally. Her body is ripped apart, vanishing into swirling fragments like a witch-shaped firework. It's a dramatic, almost operatic visual metaphor. The last vestige of Voldemort's most fanatical servant shatters into nothing. Evil, once proud and shrieking, disintegrates into dust under the power of a mother's wrath. This cinematic choice stirred discussion among fans. Was it too much, too flashy, too unlike the book? But for many, it was perfect. It captured something that words on a page could only hint at. The visual destruction of Bellatrix felt like a release, not just for Molly, but for the audience. For 7 books and 8 films, Bellatrix had wreaked havoc. She had tortured Neville's parents into madness. She had murdered Sirius Black. She had maimed and mocked and served Voldemort with fanatical glee. Her death wasn't just a tactical victory, it was justice. Helena Bonham Carter herself spoke in interviews about Bellatrix's death scene. "It was like a firecracker going off," she said. That moment had to be explosive, not just literally, but emotionally. Bellatrix didn't expect it. She never thought someone like Molly Weasley could be her end, and that's what made it brilliant. Carter's portrayal throughout the series had infused Bellatrix with a seductive unpredictability, and it only made her demise more shocking. Julie Walters, too, approached the scene with fierce determination. "That line, that moment, it's a gift for any actress," she said. "But more than that, it's a moment for all the mums watching. It's saying, don't underestimate a mother." And indeed, that's what makes the duel so powerful. Molly Weasley, the woman who makes jumpers and fusses over breakfast, steps into the fray and annihilates one of the most dangerous witches in the wizarding world. It's not about brute power. It's about heart. Bellatrix's character had always been more than a simple villain. She was Voldemort's most loyal servant, arguably more devoted than even Snape or Lucius Malfoy. She believed in the Dark Lord's mission with a religious fervor. Her hatred for Muggleborns, her obsession with pure blood supremacy, and her violent delight in cruelty made her a terrifying force. Yet Rowling gave her layers, a twisted nobility, a perverse sense of love. Her unrequited, near-worshipful feelings for Voldemort made her even more disturbing. So when she is struck down by Molly, it is not just the death of a Death Eater, it's the collapse of a warped ideology. Bellatrix's smugness, her belief in her own invincibility, is shattered. It's poetic that the person to bring her down is someone she would have considered beneath her. A housewife, a blood traitor, a nobody. In that moment, Bellatrix's world crumbles. The hierarchy she fought for fails her. The power she revered deserts her. There's a chilling symmetry in the scene. Just as Bellatrix once killed Sirius Black with a single spell, laughing as he fell through the veil, she now meets her own end at the hands of someone driven by love, not vengeance. The contrast is striking. Bellatrix killed for sport, for ideology, for pleasure. Molly kills to protect. That moral difference charges the scene with weight. Fans have long debated whether Molly's magical skills were ever foreshadowed to be on this level, but Rowling planted the seeds carefully. Molly raised 7 children in a time of war. She was a member of the Order of the Phoenix. She battled Death Eaters in the Department of Mysteries, and most poignantly, she faced personal tragedy with unwavering strength. Her duel with Bellatrix isn't a leap of logic. It's the logical eruption of years of suppressed fear, grief, and anger. Interestingly, in earlier drafts of the screenplay, the duel was even longer and more elaborate. Some scenes were cut or shortened for pacing. But what remained struck a chord. The scene stood out not just because of its action, but because of what it represented. It wasn't just Molly and Bellatrix. It was a symbolic war between love and hatred, family and fanaticism, sanity and madness. In fan art and fan fiction, this moment is often revisited. Artists draw Molly with fire in her eyes, wand alight. Writers imagine alternate versions. What if Ginny had helped? What if Bellatrix had taunted her more? But in every variation, the heart remains the same. This wasn't about skill, it was about will. What makes the scene even more memorable is what follows. Voldemort, having lost his most trusted lieutenant, grows more desperate. He starts to unravel. Bellatrix's death signals a turning point. She was more than a soldier. She was his enforcer, his believer. Her absence creates a vacuum, and Voldemort feels it. His rage spikes. His recklessness begins. That ripple effect underlines the power of the moment. Bellatrix's death isn't an isolated event. It shifts the battlefield. It weakens Voldemort not just strategically, but emotionally. For the first time, his followers begin to falter. The legend of invincibility starts to crack. There's also a generational echo in this duel. The war started with parents and children, with the Potters, the Longbottoms. Now it ends with another parent fighting for her child. The cycle comes full circle. In that sense, Molly becomes a symbol of all the parents who fought, lost, and hoped. Ultimately, Bellatrix's demise is one of the most cathartic scenes in the entire series, not because it's flashy, not because it's dramatic, but because it gives voice to something deeply human, the need to protect what we love and the strength we find when everything is on the line. The Battle of Hogwarts had many heroes, Harry, Neville, Hermione, Ron, but for that one moment when fire clashed with madness and love tore darkness apart, all eyes were on Molly Weasley, and no one who saw it would ever forget. Number 21, the train fight, Draco's ruthless side. It was a compartment like any other on the Hogwarts Express, but inside it, hidden behind a thin door and the shimmer of an invisibility cloak, history shifted just a little. It was in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince that a scene of quiet confrontation exploded into one of the most emotionally loaded moments in the series. Harry, ever the bold Gryffindor, had taken it upon himself to tail Draco Malfoy. What he found was not mischief or arrogance, but something darker, something older than boyhood rivalry. It was the smell of fear, the edge of violence, and a boy trying to bear the weight of his family's sins. J.K. Rowling gives us a Harry who's acting on instinct, suspicion, and a burning desire to protect his friends. He's a Death Eater. It's not just about being a Slytherin anymore, Harry insists earlier in the book. By the time he slips into Draco's compartment under his cloak, he's no longer the child who laughed at Bertie Bott's every flavour beans. He's a soldier. But what he sees in Draco surprises even him. Inside the compartment, Draco Malfoy is speaking to Blaise Zabini. He's calm, but there's a tension in his voice, something tightly coiled. "I'm not wearing those robes, it's ridiculous," Draco snaps when Zabini mocks the idea of a secret mission. You'll see soon enough. These aren't the words of a prankster or a spoiled brat. They are the quiet deflections of someone deeply afraid. Harry watches, listens. He wants a smoking wand, proof that Malfoy's working with Voldemort. But what he gets is something worse, confirmation that Draco is already halfway down a path from which he may never return. The novel describes the moment Harry is discovered with simple brutality. Draco's foot connected with Harry's face. There was a sickening crack. Harry, under the cloak, is not seen, he is sensed. It's the instinct of a predator recognizing another presence in the dark. Draco strikes without hesitation, and the next moment Harry is lying paralyzed, bloodied, and alone on the floor of the train. The compartment door slides shut. The silence is suffocating, but it's in the film adaptation of this scene that the moment achieves its most chilling form. Director David Yates captures something more cinematic, more psychological. Tom Felton's portrayal of Malfoy shifts from schoolboy menace to something almost Shakespearean. There's tragedy in his silence, menace in his stare. The compartment is dimly lit, shadows stretching across Draco's face like bars on a cell. The camera lingers on him long enough for us to see it. Doubt, desperation, a flicker of pain. He's not just doing Voldemort's work. He's trying to convince himself he can. When Draco discovers Harry beneath the invisibility cloak, the silence stretches unnaturally. There's no scream, no curse shouted in triumph. There's just that quiet flick of the wand and the wordless Petrificus Totalis. Harry collapses. It's not a duel, it's not a fight, it's a message. Draco doesn't care who Harry is anymore. He leaves him in the corridor, blood streaming from his nose, hidden under the cloak so no one will find him until it's almost too late. This moment is crucial, not just because of what happens, but because of what it says. It's the scene that draws the line between childhood rivalry and war. Before this, Harry and Draco's relationship had been built on taunts, tricks, and Quidditch fouls, but now it's about power and fear, and the unbearable pressure of legacy. "You don't understand what I'm dealing with," Draco says in a later scene, voice cracking. And we believe him, because of that look in the compartment, because of what he did, and what he couldn't say. Tom Felton, in this scene, delivers a performance without words that hits harder than any line. The way his eyes shift, the way his jaw tightens. He's no longer the same boy from year one who laughed about Potter not having parents. There's a haunted look to him. In an interview, Felton said he tried to play Draco as someone terrified of failing but pretending to be confident. That duality is on full display in the train scene. It's what gives it such weight. Cinematographer Bruno Del Bonel drenches the scene in a cold, desaturated color palette. Everything feels drained, like the joy of going back to school has been sucked out of the air. The train becomes a coffin, And the use of music, Nicholas Hooper's eerie, almost metallic score, rattles like chains dragging behind the scene. When Harry is left alone, the hum of the train becomes menacing, like a predator breathing in the shadows. There's no comfort here, no help coming, and that is what makes this moment so cruel. Harry is not just injured, he is humiliated. There's a symbolic weight in being left beneath the invisibility cloak. He is unseen, unheard, and rendered powerless. He was always the hero, the one who saved others. Now he's just another body on the floor. It's Luna Lovegood who eventually finds him and helps him back to his feet. That contrast between Draco's cold violence and Luna's gentle kindness frames the moral compass of the story. But what makes the scene even more powerful is its ambiguity. Draco doesn't kill Harry. He could have done worse. But he doesn't. He silences him, hurts him, and leaves. It's as if he's testing how far he's willing to go. He's dipping his hands into darkness, but he hasn't yet bathed in it. There's hesitation, and that's what makes him fascinating. He's not yet lost, but he's close. In the book, we later learn just how much pressure Draco is under. He's been given a task by you-know-who, Snape reveals. A mission. It's too much for a boy. And it is. But the compartment scene shows us that before we even know the details. The way Draco acts, the violence without words, the way he doesn't gloat. It's the behavior of someone who's not enjoying this. He's surviving. Harry, too, learns something in that moment. He learns that evil doesn't always come with a sneer and a laugh. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's afraid, and sometimes it wears the face of a boy who's just trying to protect his family. "I have to do this," Draco whispers later in the film, trembling in front of Dumbledore. The compartment was the beginning of that confession. There's something intimate about violence when it's quiet. No explosions, no grandstanding, just one boy crushing another under his foot. That's what makes the scene unforgettable. In a way, it echoes the tragedy of the whole series, that the real horror isn't in dragons or dementors, but in what people do to each other when they're scared. Draco's attack isn't heroic, but it is deeply human. This is the scene where Harry stops being just the boy who lived and becomes a witness to the collapse of another boy's soul. And he carries that with him. He never forgets it. When, in Deathly Hallows, he spares Draco's life twice, it's because of this. Because he saw what was behind the mask, because he knew Draco wasn't evil. Just trapped. The scene on the train doesn't end with a cheer or a clever spell. It ends with blood on the floor and silence in the air. It ends with a whisper from Luna, "You look awful." It ends with Harry, not victorious, but humbled. It reminds us that bravery is not always rewarded, and that villains are not always what they seem. In storytelling, a turning point is rarely loud. It's quiet, like a boy lying unconscious while the train rumbles on. This scene is that moment for Draco, for Harry, and for the war that's beginning to wrap its cold hands around everyone at Hogwarts. It's not a duel, it's not a battle, it's a message. The dark has arrived, and it wears a school uniform. Rowling understood the power of restraint. She didn't give Draco a monologue. She gave him a footstep, a spell, and a silence. That was enough. And the film honored that, making it one of the most chilling moments in the entire adaptation. It's not flashy, but it stays with you, the way trauma often does. So many fans remember the train scene, not because of action, but because of what it reveals. About Harry, about Draco, about how childhood ends, not with a bang, but with the quiet thud of a body hitting the floor. The scene is a warning. War doesn't start with armies. It starts with boys hurting each other in places no one sees. And so, as the train roars forward and the trees blur past the windows, Harry lies on the floor, bleeding. Draco walks away, not triumphant, but broken, and we, the readers and viewers, are left breathless, not because of what happened, but because of what it means. The war has begun, and innocence is its first casualty. Number 22, Ron and Hermione's first kiss. Of all the powerful moments scattered across the final pages of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the romantic culmination between Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger stands out for its emotional payoff, its understated tenderness, and its symbolic importance. After years of unresolved tension, bickering, loyalty, and unspoken affection, their love finally emerges not in the safety of a peaceful world, but in the heart of war, an eruption of emotion that feels both chaotic and inevitable. It is this moment, occurring after the destruction of a Horcrux and just before the final showdown, that quietly reshapes the emotional tapestry of the entire saga. In the book, the kiss is surprisingly unceremonious. Ron and Hermione have just destroyed the Cup Horcrux in the Chamber of Secrets, a grim, messy task that ends with them soaked and breathless. As they re-emerge into the battle, Harry, ever the third wheel, becomes witness to an unexpected yet long-awaited development. Rowling writes, "There was a clatter as the basilisk fangs cascaded out of Hermione's arms. Running at Ron, she flung them around his neck and kissed him full on the mouth. Harry's immediate reaction, 'Is this the moment?' serves as a wry acknowledgement of years of pent-up emotion. It is not a grand gesture meant for fairy tales. It is grounded in urgency, shaped by the terror of war, and the realization that life might be lost in an instant. This casual tone in the novel, almost humorous in its presentation, is characteristic of Rowling's style when it comes to romantic fulfillment. She resists melodrama and instead inserts romance into the folds of danger and fatigue. The kiss, while symbolically rich, is not allowed to dominate the scene. Hermione and Ron do not get a moment alone. Harry interrupts, reality reasserts itself, and the fight against Voldemort continues. But for readers, this single kiss represents the payoff of a slow-burning affection that has stretched across 7 books. The films, however, take a different approach. David Yates, directing Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 2, amplifies the emotional weight of the moment. The Chamber of Secrets is darker, more ominous. The Cup Horcrux, brought to cinematic life, shrieks and shimmers like a ghostly creature. When it is destroyed, the tension spills over, not into light-hearted relief, but into a sweeping, passionate kiss. Hermione and Ron stand in a ruined chamber, water dripping around them, and they finally succumb to everything they've been suppressing. The kiss is long, slow, and drenched in emotion. For once, the chaos outside is muted. For a flicker of time, there is only them. Emma Watson and Rupert Grint deliver this scene with a mix of surprise and intensity. Their chemistry, built over a decade of acting together, allows for a kiss that feels deeply earned. The camera lingers not just on their lips but on their eyes, as if trying to comprehend that this moment is truly happening. Unlike the book, where Harry's interruption is quick and comedic, the film gives Ron and Hermione the dignity of privacy. It's not a joke, it's a climax. And in a film filled with fire and blood and finality, this pause for love becomes a moment of peace. The differences between the book and the film version of the kiss are rooted in narrative tone. In the books, Hermione and Ron's relationship has been defined by subtleties. Sideways glances, sharp retorts, protective gestures. Their love is unspoken, delicate, and often buried beneath layers of sarcasm and teenage awkwardness. In The Half-Blood Prince, for instance, Hermione reacts with visible pain when Ron starts dating Lavender Brown. Her quiet retreat to the library, her decision to attack Ron with a flock of conjured birds, "O pugno!" she cries, is one of the few times she allows herself to express what she feels. Ron, for his part, is clumsy with emotion. His jealousy over Victor Crumb in Goblet of Fire, his overreactions, his sulks, all of it builds a picture of a boy who feels more than he understands. In Deathly Hallows, after he returns from abandoning the trio during their Horcrux hunt, it's clear that something has changed. He has grown, and it's telling that his redemption in Hermione's eyes begins not with words, but with actions. He saves her, he listens, he follows her lead into the Chamber of Secrets, a place she alone can access. The destruction of the Horcrux, a cup filled with dark magic, becomes not just a tactical victory, but a metaphorical release. The kiss is also a culmination of Hermione's arc. She has always been the logical one, the planner, the one who hesitates and strategizes. For her to act first, to rush into Ron's arms and kiss him without hesitation, is a massive emotional leap. She is not a girl ruled by passion. She is ruled by purpose, and yet in that moment passion wins. This shift is not just a reward for the readers or the characters, it's a statement about love in times of crisis. That in the darkest of places, love still demands to be felt. Some fans have long debated whether Hermione should have ended up with Harry instead. Even Rowling herself once admitted in an interview that Hermione and Ron might need relationship counseling. But these doubts miss the core of Ron and Hermione's bond. Where Harry and Hermione are a partnership of admiration and affection, Ron and Hermione are a relationship of growth. They challenge each other, they irritate each other, but they make each other better. Ron brings humor into Hermione's life. She grounds his impulsiveness. Their kiss is not just about love, it's about transformation. The setting of the kiss is no accident either. The Chamber of Secrets was once a place of death and fear. It is where Ginny Weasley was nearly lost, where Harry fought a basilisk, where dark memories slithered through the stones. That Ron and Hermione reclaim this space, turn it into a backdrop for love, is quietly poetic. They take something filled with trauma and remake it into something beautiful. It's a kind of healing, not just for them, but for the narrative itself. And yet, despite the weight of the moment, the book barely gives it half a page. That is the beauty and frustration of Rowling's storytelling. She trusts the reader to fill in the emotional gaps. Where films need visuals and pacing and dramatic crescendos, books can hint, can nod, can move on. The Horcrux is destroyed. The kiss happens. Life and war continues. But in that small moment, something immense shifts. They are no longer children. They are no longer circling each other in confusion. They have chosen each other. When asked about filming the kiss, Emma Watson confessed that it was awkward. Rupert and I are like siblings. It felt very strange. Rupert Grint agreed, but despite their discomfort, the result is one of the most talked about scenes in the film. Perhaps because fans had waited so long. Perhaps because, in a story filled with death, this scene offered something else, a spark of hope. The kiss is also the end of a love story that began in Philosopher's Stone when Ron insulted Hermione and made her cry. From that moment, their journey began. It's a classic enemies to lovers arc, but more grounded in mutual respect than romantic idealism. Each year at Hogwarts, each argument, each shared danger brought them closer. Their kiss in Deathly Hallows is not a surprise. It is the logical end of a very slow dance. It's also important to recognize what their kiss represents in a broader thematic sense. Rowling's books are not romantic novels, but they are deeply emotional. Friendship, loyalty, courage, these are the pillars. And love, while not always foregrounded, sits at the center. Lily's love protects Harry. Dumbledore's love for Grindelwald haunts him. Snape's unrequited love defines his entire life. And Ron and Hermione, ordinary, flawed, real, show that love can grow in silence, in sarcasm, in survival. For many fans, the scene is cathartic. It's not about perfection. It's about timing. In the middle of a war, in a chamber soaked in memory, two friends kiss. And suddenly the end feels near, but so does a new beginning. Even Harry, who once watched them with exasperation, understands. He doesn't laugh, he doesn't roll his eyes, he simply says, "Is this the moment?" And then reminds them they still have a battle to fight. But there is something softer in his voice, as if even the chosen one knows that in the fight for the world, moments like this are what make it all worth saving. It's easy to dismiss Ron and Hermione's kiss as fan service or to wish it had come earlier, but timing is everything in stories. Their kiss comes not at the end, but in the thick of the storm. It does not promise a fairy tale. It promises something more valuable, reality, a messy, honest, brave declaration of love that can survive anything, even Voldemort. And in that sense, it's not just a kiss, it's a victory. In the years after Hogwarts, we learn from the epilogue that Ron and Hermione marry, have children, and remain in each other's lives. But that future begins not with a proposal or a confession, but with a kiss in a forgotten room under a cursed castle. It begins with a choice, a leap, a breath held and then released. And so when the basilisk fangs hit the floor and Hermione throws herself into Ron's arms, it is more than a teenage romance. It is a final puzzle piece clicking into place. The story could not end without it. Not really. Because even in a world of magic, the most powerful spell is love. Number 23, Voldemort's resurrection ritual. The graveyard was silent, save for the wind rustling through weeds and the faint sound of Harry Potter's own shallow breaths. He had just witnessed something beyond comprehension. Cedric Diggory lay lifeless beside him, a sudden and senseless death. And now, bound to a gravestone, Harry stared into a cauldron bubbling in the shadows, its contents black, thick, and steaming with ancient malice. This was no ordinary magic. It was old, foul, unholy. Lord Voldemort's resurrection was not an accident nor a miracle. It was a ritual, a carefully planned, grotesque ceremony of blood and bone that unfolded with deliberate precision. In The Goblet of Fire, J.K. Rowling crafted this moment with chilling efficiency in the book, while the film adaptation drenched the scene in dread and darkness, dragging every moment out with haunting cinematic detail. Bone of the Father, unknowingly given, you will renew your son. Peter Pettigrew's voice trembled as he spoke the incantation. His hands, shaking from fear and anticipation, scattered the crushed remains of Voldemort's father into the simmering cauldron. The earth had reluctantly given up those bones, long buried, forgotten, yet still bound by blood. Here, Rowling twisted the concept of family legacy. The bones of Tom Riddle Sr., a Muggle murdered by his own son, became the first piece in the unholy trinity of the resurrection spell. It was an insult to heritage and lineage, a symbolic desecration of ancestry. It whispered of Voldemort's contempt for his own origins, his hatred for anything that tied him to weakness and mortality. The next step was more grotesque, more immediate. Flesh of the servant, willingly given, you will revive your master. With a swift, agonized cry, Pettigrew sliced off his own hand, his right hand, and cast it into the cauldron. The act was as painful as it was loyal. Or perhaps it wasn't loyalty, but fear. Peter Pettigrew, the traitor of the Marauders, the man who betrayed James and Lily Potter, offered part of himself to resurrect the monster he both feared and revered. This moment matters, not only because it was physically violent, but because it exposed the depth of control Voldemort exerted over his followers. Pettigrew's action wasn't just a magical necessity, it was a metaphor for how the Dark Lord devoured those who served him. He demanded sacrifice, not service. He demanded pain, not partnership. Pettigrew's hand, severed and bleeding, symbolized the price of aligning oneself with evil. You gave and gave until there was nothing left of you. Then came the final, most horrifying part of the ritual. Blood of the enemy, forcibly taken, you will resurrect your foe. Harry, still bound, screamed as Pettigrew approached him with a silver dagger. There was no ceremony to the violence, just a quick, brutal slice across the arm, and the crimson blood that spilled into the air was caught like a sacred offering and dropped into the cauldron. It hissed as it met the potion's surface, a terrible sound like snakes in the grass. Harry's blood wasn't just symbolic. Voldemort chose it for its power. He wanted the protection Lily Potter had placed on her son. The sacrificial magic that had burned him 13 years earlier now became a weapon he would wield himself. He thought he had found a loophole in love. "Now I can touch you," Voldemort would later whisper to Harry, his finger stroking the boy's cheek with eerie softness. That moment, cruel and intimate, showed how Voldemort corrupted even the deepest forms of human connection. And then it happened. The cauldron exploded in blinding light, smoke poured out, the graveyard lit up like a terrible fireworks show no one had wanted, and from the depths of that cauldron a figure emerged, thin, pale, skeletal, and yet pulsing with power. Lord Voldemort had returned. The resurrection itself was described with surgical detail. His face was whiter than a skull, with wide, livid scarlet eyes and a nose that was as flat as a snake's, with slits for nostrils. This was no man. This was a spectre of death, a creature reassembled from horror and ambition. And now he walked again. The movie elevated this horror even further. Ralph Fiennes, as Voldemort, was born from that cauldron like a demon from myth. His skin glistened like it had never felt light. His limbs moved like something unaccustomed to flesh. The cinematography didn't shy away. The camera lingered on his bald head, the serpentine slits of his nostrils, the eerie way he caressed Pettigrew's mutilated stump with mock affection. This was not just a return. It was a coronation. He took his wand. He tested the air. He spoke with deliberate cruelty, almost tasting the words. "Robe me," he said to Pettigrew, and the small man scrambled to obey, draping black fabric over the monster he had raised. The reborn Dark Lord turned to the night and called for his followers, the Death Eaters, who arrived with pops of apparition, falling to their knees in a circle around him like satellites to a black star. The ritual had succeeded, but what had truly been born in that graveyard was something more dangerous than Voldemort himself. It was the certainty of war. For 13 years, the wizarding world had lived in denial. Yes, Harry had survived the killing curse. Yes, strange things still happened. But the Dark Lord was gone, defeated, a ghost of history. And now, standing in that graveyard, mocking Lucius Malfoy and Bellatrix's husband for pretending innocence, Voldemort made his promise. "I returned, and I am stronger than ever." This was a political moment, not just magical. The ritual was dark magic, but its aftermath was war strategy. Voldemort counted his followers. He reminded them of their debts. He declared his intentions to cleanse the world of Muggleborns, to install himself as ruler, to kill Harry Potter. For Harry, this was a nightmare, but also a reckoning. Tied to the gravestone of Tom Riddle Sr., he saw the cost of courage. He saw what awaited him. He understood in that moment that he was no longer a boy caught in a magical school. He was a soldier in a war no one wanted to acknowledge. The most terrifying part of Voldemort's resurrection was not the ritual itself. It was how well it worked. In the years to come, Dumbledore would lament that no one believed Harry. The Ministry of Magic denied the return of the Dark Lord, preferring comfort over truth. But Harry had seen him, had felt the heat of the cauldron, had watched the flesh bubble and bind, had bled. It changed Harry forever. That night in the graveyard marked the end of innocence, not just for him, but for the reader too. Rowling didn't write the ritual as an accident of narrative. It was structured, symmetrical, a perverse anti-baptism, bone, flesh, blood, past, present, future. The father he killed, the servant he owned, the enemy he needed. Voldemort used others to become whole again. And that was his essence. He built himself out of ruin. Even the symbolism is chilling. The graveyard of Little Hangleton, with its crumbling stones and decaying crypts, becomes a womb of sorts. The cauldron a uterus, the potion an amniotic fluid of hate. And out comes Voldemort, reborn not with love but through murder, mutilation, and violation. There's something mythological about it, like the resurrection of evil gods in ancient stories, Osiris torn apart and reassembled, Loki reborn to bring Ragnarok. Voldemort fits that archetype, the bringer of the end, and Harry, standing among the tombs, is the unwilling hero chosen by fate. The boy who bleeds so that evil may return, but who will eventually be the one to end it. When we look back at the series, that moment in the graveyard is a pivot point. Before it, Voldemort was an echo, a threat in the dark. After it, he was real, powerful, walking, breathing, killing. The ritual gave him more than a body. It gave him agency. It gave him vengeance. In the book, Rowling's prose remains clean, almost clinical. She doesn't indulge in gore. But the horror comes from the implications, from the fact that Harry is a child and yet is forced to witness and suffer through this hell. It's a scene of psychological horror, more than physical. It scars him, and it scars us. The resurrection also marks the beginning of Voldemort's fatal mistake. By using Harry's blood, he unknowingly binds himself to the very love magic that protected the boy. "He took your blood," Dumbledore later says, "believing it would strengthen him. He took into himself a tiny part of the enchantment your mother laid upon you." And so Voldemort's rebirth contains the seed of his second death. What makes this ritual so unforgettable is how much it changes the story. It doesn't just bring Voldemort back, it opens the floodgates. From this point on, no one is safe. The tone of the series shifts. It's no longer about secrets and puzzles, it's about survival. Voldemort's return was the moment the fairy tale turned into a war story. And it all started with bone, flesh, and blood. Number 24, Harry and Dumbledore at King's Cross. Of all the moments that Harry Potter lived through in his extraordinary life, perhaps none was as silent, as ethereal, as deeply transformative as his final conversation with Albus Dumbledore at King's Cross. It was not a place in the traditional sense, nor was it truly a dream. It was something in between, a liminal space that existed beyond time, touched by death, cradled by magic, and illuminated by the enduring connection between student and mentor. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, after Voldemort strikes Harry with the killing curse in the Forbidden Forest, Harry does not die, or not completely. Instead, he finds himself in a pristine, white version of King's Cross Station, and there waits Dumbledore, as serene and wise as ever. The book paints this as a moment of philosophical clarity, but the film adaptation elevates it into a visual lullaby and quiet, glowing, almost holy. The floor is impossibly white. There are no trains, there is no noise, no commotion, no shadow. Harry, barefoot and bleeding only in memory, looks younger here, softer. Dumbledore appears whole and radiant, free of the curse-blackened hand that plagued his final days. The setting is a kind of afterlife, or perhaps a spiritual limbo. But what makes this scene unforgettable isn't the visual purity. It's the emotional weight behind the dialogue. In both book and film, it becomes the true final lesson. Dumbledore no longer holds any secrets, no longer plays his complicated chess game. Here, he is just a man speaking to a boy who has become something more. "I think I'm dead," Harry says softly in the book. "Not at all," Dumbledore replies, his blue eyes twinkling behind half-moon spectacles. "Not at all, my dear boy." And with those words, J.K. Rowling gifts readers a gentle paradox. Harry has given himself to death willingly and has thus been spared. But the real revelation here is not merely that Harry is alive, it's that he now understands Dumbledore fully, perhaps for the first time. Their conversation touches on many things: the Horcrux that resided in Harry, now gone, the fate of Voldemort, the future of the wizarding world. But what readers and viewers feel most acutely is the humanity of Dumbledore. No longer the all-knowing headmaster, he confesses his failures, his pride, his love for Gellert Grindelwald, and how power had once tempted him. He speaks of his family, of Ariana's death, and the guilt he carried all his life. "Do not pity the dead, Harry, pity the living, and above all, those who live without love," he tells Harry, a line that echoes like scripture. The film captures this exchange with a kind of reverence. Michael Gambon's portrayal is restrained, almost ghostly. His voice is soft but steady, and when he says, "Help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who deserve it," the air stills. It is not merely a line, it is a benediction. The words are not spoken to comfort Harry. They are spoken as a final truth, one last mantra to carry him back into the world of the living, and Harry receives it not as a student but as an equal. It is a changing of the guard. The boy who once looked up to Dumbledore with wide, uncertain eyes now looks at him with understanding. There is a moment in the scene, subtle, almost imperceptible, where Harry looks down the empty tracks and asks, "Is this real? Or has this been happening inside my head?" To which Dumbledore answers with a smile, "Of course it is happening inside your head, Harry. But why on earth should that mean that it is not real?" The beauty of this exchange lies in its paradox, but the idea that what we feel, what we believe, even in the deepest parts of our imagination, holds truth. It is a powerful message about faith, about the strength of the mind, about the nature of reality itself. What makes this conversation so resonant is not that it answers every question, but that it validates the mystery. Dumbledore does not hand Harry a map. He does not tell him what exactly will happen when he returns. He simply provides him with choice. That has always been the theme of the series: choice over fate, love over power, mercy over vengeance. "You are the true master of death," Dumbledore says, referring not to the Hallows, but to Harry's willingness to sacrifice himself. This is what sets Harry apart from Tom Riddle. This is what redeems him. And in this quiet place beyond death, that truth becomes visible. The film's use of silence is its greatest strength. Unlike so many climactic scenes that rely on swelling music or epic speeches, this one is stripped down to its emotional core. When Harry and Dumbledore speak, there is no score. The silence allows the weight of each word to settle. Even the camera lingers, unafraid of stillness. Director David Yates understood something vital about this moment, that nothing needed to be added. It was already sacred. And yet, even within that purity, there is pain. Dumbledore tears up as he speaks of his sister, as he admits that his own thirst for power contributed to her death. This is not the same Dumbledore who once stood atop the astronomy tower. This is a man seeking forgiveness, not just from Harry, but from himself. That vulnerability deepens the bond between them. It tells Harry and us that even the greatest among us are fallible. Even legends carry shame. Harry listens. He does not interrupt, he does not judge, he simply accepts. And this quiet acceptance is perhaps his final rite of passage. It is not the defeat of Voldemort that makes him a hero. It is this moment of grace. It is his ability to forgive Dumbledore's flaws, to see him not as a godlike figure, but as a human being who tried his best and made terrible mistakes. In that, Harry transcends his childhood. The symbolism of the station cannot be ignored. King's Cross has always been a place of transition in the series, a gateway between worlds, between childhood and adulthood, between the ordinary and the magical. But here, in this radiant version of it, the symbolism becomes cosmic. It is the ultimate crossing point between life and death. And Dumbledore, always the guide, always the gatekeeper, stands there one last time to offer wisdom before Harry boards the train or chooses not to. In the book, there is a strange and disturbing creature hidden beneath a bench, something shriveled and pained, crying softly. Dumbledore tells Harry not to pity it. It is what remains of Voldemort's soul, the piece that had latched on to Harry for so long. The film omits this, choosing instead to focus on the purity of the encounter. And while some fans lament the loss of that detail, the choice serves the visual and emotional tone of the scene. This is not Voldemort's moment, this is Harry's. The lighting is key. Everything is bathed in white and gold, the kind of light that belongs to memory or to heaven. There is no darkness here. It is peace, but not the final kind. When Harry makes the decision to return, it is not framed as a loss. He is not being wrenched back into pain. He is choosing life because it is worth fighting for. "I've got to go back, haven't I?" he says. And Dumbledore, with a knowing look, replies, "That, Harry, is up to you." This scene would not work if their relationship had not been so deeply developed across the series. Dumbledore has always been the great architect of Harry's journey, sometimes kind, sometimes distant, always complex. In earlier books he was the gentle grandfather, the protector. In later ones, especially in the Half-Blood Prince, he becomes more calculating. By the time Deathly Hallows arrives, readers are questioning whether Dumbledore manipulated Harry for the greater good. This scene, this conversation at the station, resolves that tension. It shows us that Dumbledore always cared, always hoped, and always regretted the cost of his plans. Dumbledore's final gift to Harry is not a wand or a cloak or a stone. It is understanding. It is the knowledge that death is not the enemy, that the true power lies in choice and love. "Do not be afraid," he tells Harry. "You are safe." And Harry, for the first time since he was a baby, truly feels that he is. It is a moment of healing that goes beyond the scars on his forehead. In a series filled with battles, curses, betrayals, and heartbreak, it is this soft, luminous scene that lingers most. It is the eye of the storm, the calm that makes all the chaos worthwhile. For a brief time, Harry and Dumbledore exist outside the reach of war and pain. And in that place they say goodbye. Not with drama, not with tears, but with the quiet dignity of those who have faced the worst and chosen to carry on. And when Harry wakes up, gasping for breath in the forest, the light of the station still seems to cling to him. He is reborn, not as a weapon, but as a man who understands mercy. Voldemort, for all his power, cannot comprehend this kind of strength, and that is what dooms him. Harry returns with no Hallows in hand, no plan, only faith. And in the end, that is enough. The King's Cross scene is not just the end of Harry's journey with Dumbledore. It is the conclusion of a mentorship that began in the cupboard under the stairs. It is the final page of a relationship that shaped the fate of the wizarding world. And for all its silence, it speaks volumes. In that glowing, dreamlike station, we do not just witness a conversation. We witness a farewell, a blessing, and a boy who became a man. Not by killing, but by understanding. Number 25, the epilogue, 19 years later, on platform 9, 3-4. Of all the moments that define the emotional arc of the Harry Potter saga, few resonate as powerfully as the final scene on platform 9, 3-4, set 19 years after the Battle of Hogwarts. The dust of war has long settled, time has smoothed over the scars, leaving behind not emptiness but echoes of hope. The once troubled boy who lived is now a man, and in that gentle September light he stands not as a warrior, but as a father. This epilogue, both in the book and on screen, offers not just closure, but a soft, forgiving embrace to everyone who followed the journey from the cupboard under the stairs to the very heart of magic itself. In J.K. Rowling's words, the scene is a simple one. The scar had not pained Harry for 19 years. All was well. These final lines may appear understated, even quiet, after the storm of the last chapters, but within them lies the soul of the series. Peace, at last, is no longer a dream. In the book, the narrative steps carefully, almost formally, through the motions, the crowd at King's Cross, the steam rising from the scarlet engine, the excited chatter of children, and the tender parental instructions of familiar faces now aged by time. Harry's gaze lingers on his son, Albus Severus Potter, whose nervous eyes flicker with uncertainty as he prepares for his first year at Hogwarts. "Albus Severus," Harry tells him, kneeling to be eye level, "you were named for 2 headmasters of Hogwarts. One of them was a Slytherin, and he was probably the bravest man I ever knew." It's more than reassurance, it's redemption. A legacy of fear and suspicion wrapped around the name Severus Snape for so long is gently unravelled in a father's voice to his child. Harry offers not just love but clarity, breaking the chains of bias he himself had once worn. The film takes this already poignant scene and bathes it in light and music and memory. Alexandre Desplat's score swells quietly beneath the sound of the platform, families bustling, owls hooting, the gentle screech of the train's brakes. The set design resurrects the old station with loving precision. It is exactly as we left it, yet different. Like a dream we wake from only to find ourselves still partly within it. The steam curls through the air like ghostly threads of the past, and Harry, Ron, and Hermione walk through them not as the children we knew, but as adults who carry within them all the years, all the battles, all the laughter. Ron's easy charm remains. He jokes with his daughter Rose about using a love potion, while Hermione scolds him with the same sharp wit she wielded at 11. The trio's chemistry hasn't faded. It has simply matured, softened around the edges. There's an ache to it. We remember them as young students, awkward, fiery, learning the world one spell and one heartbreak at a time. Now they're parents, protectors, watchers on the platform. Draco Malfoy appears too, older, quieter, with his son Scorpius. There is no animosity in his glance, just the tired calm of a man who has been through his own fire and survived. That silent acknowledgement between him and Harry across the platform speaks volumes. No words are needed. The war ended long ago, and now they both watch the same train carry their sons into the world they once fought for. The film's visual storytelling offers layers that the book, in its economy, could not fully explore. When Harry adjusts Albus's glasses, the gesture mirrors a dozen moments from earlier films. It is a father's instinct, yes, but it is also a callback, a tribute to those times when Harry himself fumbled with broken lenses and uncertain footing. The torch has been passed not with grandeur, but with intimacy. A hand on a shoulder, a whispered name, a final reassurance. The casting, so often debated for this scene, ultimately serves the story with grace. Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, and Emma Watson may look slightly stiff in their aging makeup, but the truth of their performances transcends cosmetics. Their eyes tell the real story. You can see the years in the way Harry's expression tightens as the train whistles, in the way Hermione's hand lingers just a moment longer on her daughter's coat, in the way Ron pretends not to be nervous but squeezes Hermione's hand a little too tightly when Rose boards the train. And the children, bright-eyed, uncertain, full of questions, are not just characters, they are symbols of continuation, of peace, of a future rebuilt from ashes. Albus's fears mirror those Harry once voiced. Will I be in Slytherin? Will I be good enough? And Harry, who once dreaded the Sorting Hat's decision, now speaks from a place of earned wisdom. The Sorting Hat takes your choice into account. It is a simple truth, but a liberating one. Albus does not yet know what kind of boy he will be, but his father does not need him to be anything other than himself.